Hi, I'm Donna, host of the Better Two podcast and also the author of Worth Waiting For. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit aside from being in the podcast and from the book world. I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that, hair is such a big deal. And yes, I'm bald and I got a little baby fuzz coming in, but it's kind of an amusing journey that I've been on. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always had baby fine straight hair. And, if somebody's like, the beautician's like, when you bring in a picture, oh, well, we can do that, but you need a perm. Okay. And yes, I had some of those nasty 80 perms of the home perm of Tony and Lilt that just stunk to high heaven. And it never turned out the way that it should have. It was always the poodle perm. But, we can always work with that allegedly. So there was a time when in the 80s I kind of liked my hair, not when it was permed, but when it was a little bit longer and it was colored and it was everything that I wanted to be for the most part. Not totally, but for the most part. And so when my mom was in her late 30s, she kind of had this issue where she was starting to lose, her hair was thinning. It wasn't that she was losing it, but she had an option of either coloring her hair or doing a perm, and it was falling out. And when I look back, most likely it was some kind of thyroid issue or hormonal issue, but we don't know about this at this point because this is the early 80s. So I'm watching my mom have thin hair, and yes, her dad was bald and, or balding. He basically had like a little couple of strand comb overs. And I always would sit there and go, I hope, in the back of my head, I'm like, I hope it never happens. It won't happen to me, all those things. And so as I started hitting my later 40s, early 50s, I started noticing that my hair was thinning. And in fact, there was the nightmare haircut story of when I got my promotional pictures done. Fortunately, the photographer filled in some things. I had told this lady I was going to get my promo pictures done, my headshots, and she, we discussed what we are going to do. She ended up dyeing my hair a darker red, which is, it's a good color for me. But the only problem is, and I told her this, it was going to show my scalp. So she cuts my hair and colors it, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh my gosh, your scalp's showing. We're going to have to put some powder there. Okay, whatever. So go on, life goes on, and my hair goes back to kind of a color that I like. But I noticed, and especially if you look at some of the older episodes of the podcast or more recent episodes, there are some spattered in there that my hair is definitely thinning. And I was freaking out because my hair was thinning. And then, knock on the door, the big C word comes cancer. And they do the surgery, and then they're telling me I have to have chemo. And the chemo that they use is something from the 70s, and it's like I'm on a 21-day cycle, and every time they come and the symptoms get worse and worse and worse. So first time I did it, it was fine. Second time, that's when I woke up and I had head pain, which when you talk about hair loss, nobody really thinks about the head pain. And I touched my head and it's like, ow, did I hit my head? No, I didn't. This is in the middle of the night. I wake up and I feel my head and I move my hand and hair comes out. So it's like, okay, well, I have to make a choice because it's coming out in clumps. So I went to Great Clips and they shaved it down, but it was basically a pixie cut at that point because it still had hair. It still was okay. And by the third treatment, it just kept coming out a little bit more. It was actually a little bit before the third treatment. And I just decided, you know what? I am done. I'm going to just go do it. I'm just going to go bald. And the funny thing is, the other day when I was doing a podcast with an author, he's like, I didn't realize you had cancer. It was like, I just assumed that you were a cosplayer. You liked, wear wigs and everything. And he's like, cause you kind of reminded me of the woman in the first Star Trek movie, which then it made me think about that. Cause she vaguely came into my mind when I knew I was going to shave my head. And I thought I used to think when I saw that movie at the theater that she was so cool and she was beautiful and everything. And I didn't really think about it now, but it was really when I made the decision to shave my head, it was like, okay, well, I guess I'll wear hats and scarves, and I got a wig for the podcast, and I think I wore the wig on the podcast maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and pretty much now out in public, and even except if I'm going to be in the sun, I just go bald. And it's funny because I was so worried about losing my hair. And I know I'm fortunate because I have a decent shaped head. But I was so worried about it. It was one of the biggest fears I had, which sounds ridiculous, I know, because there's a lot of fears to have. But as a woman, that is such a part of us. Our hair is such a part of us. And to lose it, especially going through chemo, it wasn't necessarily an easy task because you're dealing with other things. And then here's the one thing that helps you be a woman, or even men. I mean, men hate being bald too. So I should really preface that. But we all have this phobia because we are told how important our hair is. I believe Samson got his strength from his hair. So hair is always this big deal. And the truth be told, while I hope my hair comes back, and I mean, I do have, like I said, peach fuzz. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And my biggest fear, I won't have to worry about because, well, I dealt with it. It's what happened. It's life. And you know what? That's okay. So if you're going through something, if you're a woman and you're going through perimenopause and you're kind of worried about losing your hair, it's just hair. And we have to kind of look at it and go, I'm alive. And I mean, that's the one thing in the bigger picture is I lost my hair, but you know what? I'm alive. And that's a blessing. That's a blessing. And each day is a blessing. And we have to think that way. We have to, even though, yes, the world is kind of crazy right now and kind of chaotic, we have to look at where we're coming from. We have to look at who we are and be happy with what we have. I'm not saying not to aspire to more. I'm just saying be happy with the life you have. Because some people don't get the next day. Some people don't have that day to look at and go, okay, I can do this. So anyway, sorry to make this so long, but seriously, if you're worried about losing your hair, sometimes, it's like, well, guess what? We're going to pull a Band-Aid off and you're just going to have to deal with it. And here we are. So on that note, have a great day, guys. Bye.